Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Cluster API office hours. Today is Wednesday, June 21st. Cluster API is part of SIG Cluster Lifecycle. We're part of the CNCF. So please respect one another and abide to the golden rule as part of the CNCF Code of Conduct. Raise hands if you'd like to speak, we'd love to hear from you. And without further ado, the first thing that we invite folks to do in the meeting is to introduce yourselves if you're new, or really for any reason, if you want to say hi, tell us who you are, who you work for, what you're working on. We'd love to hear from you. So I'm going to pause and see if anybody wants to raise hands and do that. Going once, going twice. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit more. Also, please feel free to add your name to the attendee list here in the agenda doc. I'll paste the link in chat. The first thing is open proposals, and I think we've only got one, which is mine. So I can briefly mention that we don't yet have LGTM consensus, and so previously I suggested we might be starting lazy consensus soon, but we're not quite ready to do that. So that's really all to share there. So stay tuned. Link to the PR is there. And we have just a light agenda item. Feel free to add in real time if you've got something, but without further ado, I will go to Mikhail, who wants to talk about, actually looks like you want to demo Cluster API Operator.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. Do you mind if I start sharing my screen?
Let me handle that. I think I can.
Yeah, currently it's disabled.
So if I click on more, I can say make co-host. Take it away.
I still can't, it seems like. Okay. Do you want to continue? Yes. Amazing. Zoom bar. Okay, so before we begin, I have a couple of slides that describe what our project is and what we want to demonstrate today. Okay, so like this. And yeah, first of all, I want to thank the community for the opportunity to show a demo of our operator today. I hope you will be interested to know what features it offers, how it works in general, and so on. And my name is Mikhail Fedosin. You can call me Mike. I work in New Relic, and I am one of the maintainers of this project. But before we begin, it's necessary to understand what Cluster API operator is. And this operator allows you to manage installation, configuration, and lifecycle in general of Cluster API providers. And all this done using the declarative approach adopted in Kubernetes. And like any other operator, it provides a set of CRDs, customer resource definitions, for Cluster API providers that administrators can use to manage them. And this allows to automate provider management using GitOps best practices. So let's take a look what features this operator provides. As I said, it has a set of CRDs that allows you to declaratively describe what providers you want to use, how, versions, and so on. Then one of the most important features, I think it allows to upgrade and downgrade providers easily. I will demonstrate how it works in the demo. Then it supports air-gapped environments, so you don't need connect to GitHub or GitLab. You can create a config map, put all manifests there, and then they will be reused by the operator. Also, it leverages controller runtime configuration API, which means you can fine-tune your providers. For example, you can add change metrics address, also add environment variables, which is important for us in New Relic. You can add a sidecar container to your provider. Everything is managed there, and currently we support several dozens of different options, and we add more. So you can easily configure whatever you want in your cluster API provider. And overall, it provides a transparent and effective way to interact with various cluster API providers on the management cluster. So in the demo, I want to demonstrate 3 things. First, installing and upgrading core API provider. Then customization of Kappa, cluster API provider for AWS. And finally, air-gapped installation of cluster API provider for Azure. Let's go to the demo. I have my console somewhere, like this. Okay.
So you may need to reshare a new window.
Oh, okay. You share. Oh, high term. Can you see it now? Okay. So here I have a kind cluster. I pre-installed Cert Manager here. It's a requirement for the operator. I installed the operator itself at this moment. One important thing, currently I use operator from main branch, so it's still unreleased. Technically, everything I present today should work on the released version 0.3. But we implemented a lot of fixes, features there, so I decided it's better to use the main branch. But we are going to release a new version earlier next week, so everything will be there soon. Okay, here I have KNNS view of my kind cluster. Here I have logs of operator, and here is my management console. And first thing I want to install is the core provider. One thing I want to add. Currently, we have 4 CRDs: core provider, infrastructure provider, bootstrap, and control plane. So one for the corresponding cluster API provider, unlike cluster CTL, which packs everything in one provider CRD. Okay, so this is a template for core provider, and this is all actually we need. We need to create namespace, and I'm going to install it in copy system. So it's like the minimum configuration that you need to provide, just a version, and everything will be created in your management cluster. Let's do it. Create core.yaml. This is a live demo. I don't know what may go wrong, but let's check. And here I'm going to open core provider. It was created. Now we download things. I don't know how much time it may take. It's downloaded from GitHub. And this is what I don't like. Was it? It was downloaded. Now we parse our objects that we want to install. Again, it takes like 10-15 seconds. And the last part, installing, and you see provider successfully installed. We see installed version. I can open pod, no, not pod disruption, just pods. And we see copy controller manager here installed. That's all. So it's relatively easy. And what I'm going to demonstrate next is to upgrade it to the next version. I think our current release version is 1.4.3. So this is how you perform the upgrade of your operator. Just update version here from 1 to 3. And now it starts reinstalling the operator or the provider. Again, fetching, takes about 10-15 seconds, but normally everything happens pretty much fast. And now we're installing and done. We upgraded core provider from one version to another. We can check pods. Again, this one, YAML, why not? And you see that now it has new image. Everything is done. Relatively easy. Next thing I want to do is to install Kappa, infrastructure provider for AWS. Okay. Here we have two things. Let me quickly demonstrate its infrastructure AWS. It's more complex because here we also need to specify secret name with credentials, and we need to pre-create this secret. What values to put there are described in Cluster API book, but here it's just base 64 encoded credentials. I have it here, so I'm going to create the secret first. Apply it's AWS secret. Let's do it. And also it creates a namespace. Okay, so we can check what we have in that secret. It's here, Kappa system, AWS encoded credentials, and GitHub token. It's optional, but recommended to prevent throttling of GitHub API rate limiting. So I added it here as well. Then we deploy infrastructure. Maybe apply, and it's infrastructure AWS.yaml. We begin deploying the infrastructure. Now we download things from GitHub. We load and fetching. We can check what we have in infrastructure providers. There is nothing so far. I mean, it's not installed. Now we are installing. And yeah, it's installed successfully. We can check what we have in the pods. Okay. And this is what I'm going to change. At least something. Is it Kappa controller manager? Yes. Where do we have a run command here? It's env. Okay, yeah, here. This is like default values for the provider. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to change metric bind address. It's better just to demonstrate how it works. Structure like this. And you see that I added a couple of things to our CRD. First section is manager. Here we use controller runtime configuration API. It's defined. It's still alpha, but it's there. I want to change metrics. I want to change synchronization period. And then I'm going to add a couple of new options, new flags to the manager itself. It's related to AWS, but this is what we can do. Okay, let me do this. Why? We updated it, and now it starts to modify the provider. And it seems like it's done. Let's check. You see that we updated metrics bind address, we added 2 new options here, and we added sync period, which is equals to 500 seconds. And this is just a small example what you can change in the deployment. Technically, you can change everything. You can, modify containers, environment variables, pod affinity, everything, which is really cool. And for example, if you update the version of your provider, all your changes are automatically applied to the newer version. So you don't need to manually convert them to the new manifests. Okay. And the last thing I'd like to present is how you can use air-gapped installations. And here I want to install KubZ, infrastructure provider for Azure. And it needs 3 things. Let me demonstrate. Not bar, sorry. Infrastructure, Azure. This is the version. This is secret name. Again, it's required for infrastructure providers. But here, another section that shows where our operator should pick manifests from. And this is a config map. So it looks for config maps with these labels, and then it picks this version when it finds it. So first thing I want to do, I want to create this config map. Let's create Azure like this. What? Oh, of course. I need to create KubZ system namespace first. Okay. Namespace KubZ system. Repeat. We have this config map. We can check it. Yeah, and by the way, operator automatically creates all config maps. So it downloads data from GitHub only when it installs your provider. After that, it takes data from the local config map, like here. And this is the config map I created. We have components here. We have metadata. It contains just two keys, components and metadata. And these files can be downloaded from GitHub manually. And these are labels I want to use. Then let's create a secret with credentials and GitHub token. Azure secret. What? Okay, it's fine. And let's make sure that secret was created. It's here. We have 5 items here as described in cluster API. And the final step is to create the provider itself. So it is infrastructure. This. And it's installed. And now we have 2 providers for AWS and for Azure. Let's check pods. It creates container. What? Maybe I don't have enough memory on my machine. Okay, it's running. Okay. So probably that's all I want to demonstrate. I'm going to just quickly return to my keynote. And yeah, I want to say, let's stay in touch. And this is our operator repository. It's a part of cluster Lifecycle special interest group. It's available on GitHub. We have a dedicated Slack channel. It's called Cluster API Operator. So please join if you haven't yet. And here is a list of current Cluster API Operator maintainers in GitHub. So you can ping us if you have any questions, requests, ideas. We are always free to discuss them. And thank you for your attention. I'm going to stop sharing.
Really cool. Anybody want to raise hands and ask any questions to Mike?
Okay. Guillermo? Hey.
Hi. Well, great demo. Great work, everyone, and the operator. It looks amazing. I just wanted to ask, from your perspective, what is the difference or what is the benefit of using this operator versus, for example, having a Helm chart that installs everything, right? So I know that there's a Helm chart for the operator, but it's kind of like a 2-step. You first install the operator, and then you tell the operator what providers to install. So what is the benefit of using the operator pattern versus a direct Helm chart that installs everything? What's the added benefit there?
It's much easier to upgrade and configure. So as I said, for example, if you want to make some custom changes to your provider, you don't need to do anything with the operator. You just describe them in your CRs. And then after that, they are automatically applied to all new manifests that are released. Then air-gapped environments. Technically, you can achieve it with cluster-CTL, but here you just deploy a config map, and after that you can reuse it. Yeah, and technically, I think in general, upgrades and downgrades are much easier with this operator.
Okay. So one clarifying question: when you say it's much easier around upgrades, is it because the operator performs? I'm assuming that it's because performs certain changes in certain order, right? So you coordinate it, so it's safer. Whether like home will just apply everything in a specific order that you is that yeah okay
exactly
that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, thank you.
David. Hey. You are muted. David, you're muted.
I was just going to say I linked to the issue that I created there that we can, that the operator would have a Helm chart that would allow the continued individual installation or a more seamless operation. So folks could install ideally one or all of them. And now we don't have tons of different Helm charts to maintain.
Sorry for interrupting you. I'm not sure if Alex Demichev is here, but he is working on this right now. It's available in his repository at this moment. So technically you can install everything with one click. And we are going to merge it soon. And another feature we want to add, currently you must specify a version. What we are going to do, is to allow not to specify it, and after that operator will fetch the latest available version at this moment and substitute the value into your CR. And I think it's almost done. So next week I think it will be available. And I'm not sure if Alex is here. Maybe he is okay just to speak about how it works, because I saw it.
Yeah, I'm here. I think we can make another demo in maybe 2 weeks.
Especially how to install the operator and providers using Helm chart. It would be great.
Anyone else? Just quickly look at chat. I think chat looks healthy. Cool. The only thing I was going to ask a question about functional gaps between cluster CTL and the operator. I saw the controller runtime configuration. That's something you can't do in cluster CTL. Is that right?
You can't.
Is there any notion as those features are rolled out in operator to bring them back into cluster CTL so that
I don't know. Maybe later we can discuss how to integrate it, because as I remember, the original plan was to develop this operator in cluster API repository and allow cluster CTL to deploy everything, so they should share a lot of things. I don't know how to proceed with this right now. But we definitely can discuss it next time.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that it's not without a little bit of controversy, but long term, I would think for the user community, we'd love to maybe have one tool that does the same thing. But this is definitely really great, and I think solves more problems than like the command line interface that cluster CTL
Yeah, just
But again, I don't want to bring up too much controversy.
brief insight. We have more than 200 clusters, and each one has copy with couple cubs installed, and we need to in our company we need to find a good way to manage it. And cluster.ctl is good, but yeah, it's better to have something automated that you can use in GitOps way, and that's why we develop this.
Really cool. Okay, let me take back over screen sharing here.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah, thank you for joining today.
Okay. Jonathan, you have a machine pool machines agenda item about the spawning of new PRs, 3 PRs from 1 PR. Do you want to take it away a little bit?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a quick update about the machine pool machines implementation. So I've closed the big PR that I had open and split it up into 3 smaller ones so it'd be easier to test and review. I'm really hoping we can get it in before the next release or before the code freeze. So if you have some time, I'd really appreciate it if you could give this a quick look over.
Well, is there any serialization that we can just make it even a bit easier to reviewers, like do this one first and then?
Yeah. So the main one is the core CAPI components. One that we want to look at is the first one. The second one is the Docker machine pool machine implementation, which is rebased off of the CAPI one. And the last one is just cluster CTL discovery, which is a pretty straightforward change. And those are kind of independent of independent of the other 2.
Okay, cool. So I just added a note here to help reviewers go here first, and then
yeah, I think the CAPI components one is the most important because in order for any providers to implement machine pool machines, we would need that one. The Docker implementation is more of a reference and just to show that it works.
great. All right, thanks for the call out. Any questions for Jonathan? Okay, Stefan, it's yours about scale testing.
Yep. Can you open this? Yeah, not going to talk a lot.
You're a tiny bit quiet, at least in my
1 second.
speakers.
Not sure how to fix it except speaking louder.
That'll work.
That works. Okay, good. Yeah, I just want to give a quick update. So we merged in memory provider, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. And now we are busy continuously running scale tests on our local machines right now. And if you scroll down, stop. Basically, that's the list of issues and PRs that already came out of that and improvements to the performance. So basically, who's interested in that, just feel free to tag along, take a look at the issues that I'm coming up. Some of them are like open for volunteers. But let's say we have some issues that we are immediately addressing, so more or less like opening PR and all that sort of stuff. But we also have some of them where we just opened issues, and if someone has time and wants to help there, yeah. Otherwise, I think making good progress. We already made a lot of improvements, and yeah, I think it really helps to basically start looking at the situation of actual data versus like, I don't know how this worked in the past, but it was mostly like guessing a bit what could be performant or what couldn't be. I think we weren't too bad, but we really found some things that are just not a good idea. So basically, if you have controllers which are reconciling a lot of objects like the machine controller, and you're doing a lot of uncached calls, that doesn't work well if you're getting into cases where you have like 1, 2, 3, 4,000 machines or something like that. everything gets very slow. Yep. So just want to mention it.
Great. I count more closed PRs than open PRs, so that's awesome. More purple than green. All right, any comments for Stefan or for this effort? All right. Joe has a question about milestone 1.5 open issues. I'll go ahead and click through this. Joe, if you want to narrate.
Yeah, this was just brought up during the release team meeting. I think Christian brought this up. I just wanted to know if these are active issues that are going to go into 1.5, if these milestone tags are still being used. Just wanted to bring it up to the community to make sure they're not missed, as a 1.5 beta release will probably come out on the July 4th, I think, and then the code freeze is July 11th. So I wanted to make sure these weren't missed.
Stefan?
I think I can speak for the second and the third one. So the second one won't happen in this release, except someone picks it up and it's very quick. I basically didn't get to it, but I think it's also not something that we necessarily have to do in 1.5. It was basically just start dropping code paths for Kubernetes versions that we don't support. So just dropping functionality, not not some sort of bug fix or new feature. And the third one, I think we can just, I will do that for both. For the third one, I think we can just remove the milestone. So basically that was just a help want issue to improve.
Okay. I can follow up
or something. Yeah, I can't really speak for the first one. That's something that Vince opened, but if we open it, I think both Fabrizio and me were saying that I think we would want to make further progress with cluster class, or Fabrizio's writing it, but with cluster class plus machine pool before we graduate cluster class in some way. So in my opinion, we shouldn't do this for 1.5, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss anything.
No, perfect. Absolutely right that you bring it up. I'm just like, that's how I see those three issues.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, cool. For this one, reminder to go review Jonathan's machine pool machines PR so we can get machine pools graduated. But
and again, just to be clear, I'm sorry, the code freeze is July 11th. So I think Jonathan mentioned trying to get it in there before code freeze. So.
Yep.
So, Joe, do you have access to edit milestone metadata for these?
I've got it on my list. I don't know if I can, but I can bug somebody to do it.
Yeah, cool. So it looks like this one's going to stay and the other two will get kicked out.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Stefan?
I can do it. I think you basically need maintainer rights to.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I'm not super sure. You can do some research, but I can do it for you. So I definitely modified the second and the third one. For the third one, I dropped the milestone. For the second one, I move it to 1.6.
Yeah, I don't want to PM Cappy, but that's what I would do if it were my project. I would kick it out once we know it's not going to ship. All right, cool. Thanks for announcing that and tracking that release team. Stefan, have you said your piece on this? Yes, cool. All right, awesome. On to provider updates. CapZ, Matt.
Hey, thanks, Jack. Nothing really to add to this, just some bug fixes. So we did patch releases. Come and get them. That's it.
Bug fixes are tasty. Great. Thank you. Joe, again, you want to talk about CapOCI?
Yep, just released a quick update to support the serverless Kubernetes offering, and I'll try to give a demo on that next week. But basically, pretty cool feature that Sean put together, so I wanted to call that out.
Super fun. All right, I don't see any more provider updates. Feature group updates is empty. 17 minutes of our time back. Anyone have any last minute agenda items or comments? Okay. Happy Wednesday, everyone.